Hello, everybody. Think. we didn't communicate well. Well, I'm healing. Yeah. Um, so I reacted to someone trespassing in my backyard, and I yelled and screamed, and I chased them, and they ran away, and I slipped and wiped out. Yeah. So, am I muted?
No, I think you're. Okay. Transitioning there. I should be back. I think.
Okay.
Can you guys
Is
let me know if you hear me now? Last time I did this, I did it with a different mic because it wasn't all the
oh
way set up.
ah.
Yeah.
So, can you hear me? And can you hear David? That's the
Hello,
question.
hello, testing sibilance. Hello.
Greg is fine, no mic, David, but that might have been from before you turned on your mic.
Yeah, it's like a few seconds behind. Yes, Greg. Can you guys hear me now? I know I'm making noise now.
He's been talking this whole time. I could hear him the whole time.
Testing. One,
He's
two,
like
three.
talking my ear off. Low volume, David.
Low volume, David.
Okay.
You're fine, Greg. Low volume, David. Well, that's weird. I don't like being a low volume, David.
He likes to being a higher volume, David.
Yes. Um, Let me see if we can't fix
See,
that.
this is what happens when we don't stream regularly for like a month.
Right? I can hear both. David is quiet. Well, geez, Tyler.
Hi, Tyler.
Trying to do my best here. One sec. See what
I
we
may have a new car, Tyler.
can. Yeah, that's exciting news. Um, for sure. There. Okay, that's part of it done. And then I'm quiet. Y'all say.
Yes.
Da-da-dum-ba-bum.
You're nice and loud for me, but
Let's see
I don't,
here. Is
not
that better? I think that might is that better? Can you all let me know if that is better? We're gonna go with it might be.
so it can't be a live stream that we haven't done in a while without having little glitches. So hey,
Technical
say
difficulties with Greg and David.
I'll text you later, Tyler. Not
Not
better, David.
what, Tyler? Come on. I'm just trying to do my best here. My audio source is all cranked there. I don't want to bring this up too much.
Unless you bring the other stuff down or something.
Well, that could be. Um, what color is this? Okay. Too many input sources. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, hello? I know that's louder now. Hello? But now I'm peaking, which is bad. Better, worse? Better, worse? Worse, better? I'm gonna go with.
Yeah, you're right, Stig. We have to do it on a regular basis to be consistent.
Yeah, yeah. After a certain age, you need to. Still bad. What the heck? That's turning it up. One sec.
Have you tried turning it off and on?
You're helpful. You're helpful. While I'm doing this, why don't you start to
All right.
throw it over to Greg and he
I,
can talk
I,
about
I,
one of
I'm
the
going
things.
to talk. So, um, I, welcome everyone. It's been a while. I know I did a stream earlier in the month and whatnot, but it's we, summer. It's one of those things, holidays and running around doing stuff. So, but we do have some news. So there's a number of releases that have just happened. Some of them happened a couple weeks ago, but since we haven't had a regular stream, I thought we'll revisit them just in case someone missed them and whatnot. And I know you guys probably have been enjoying the hot summer too. So Marlin has a release. We're at 2.1.1.
Whoa.
Uh, yeah. And not a huge release. It's mostly bug fixes. There's a bunch of bug fixes and a couple improvements and whatnot. The main change, is they've added like 4 boards. Ooh, a new
Mm.
Cura LED board, new Big Tree Tech board, that kind.
Wow.
And then there's a handful of features. I don't even know what some of these are. Like there's a M150K, which is a keep unspecified component.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm, Not sure what that is, but we'll, we'll have to do some investigating. I did actually flash this onto my work printer, and it worked just fine. So,
Which board, sorry?
uh, which board?
Yeah.
They have 4 different new boards. They have a Corality 3D 4.2.5
Mm-hmm.
and a Monster 8 V2, which is very similar to like the Octopus or the um, what is it, the Spider or whatever. So it's very similar to those.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a new Big True Tech SKR SE BX board. They're up to version 3 now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a number of things. So nothing like groundbreaking,
Yeah.
but we just thought we should make everyone aware of that. Cura had point 0.1 release. We were at Cura 5.
Yep.
How's David sounding now, by the way, guys?
I think I'm still quiet, but I don't know why. I'm
Okay.
working on it.
So pardon me. Um, the Cura is at 5.1, and they've tweaked it a bit. I guess there was some problems with the new toolpath implementation, so they tweaked that. So they tweaked the algorithm, so it's now much better, and it doesn't cause buffer underruns, which I guess was an issue
Mm.
happening. They've done other improvements to the interface and toolpaths, the links to toolpaths in the digital factory piece, and improvements to the STL's loading. So there's a number of improvements there and a ton of bug fixes. So
Mm.
so if you were waiting to try Cura 5, I think 5.1 will be a really good option for you. And following on the continued release cycle, just 2 days ago, we've gone to release candidate 1 of Prusaslicer 2.5. That's right. So
2.5.
yeah, so we're getting close to. They normally, when it gets to the release candidates, they're very close. Like we had a
Mm.
bunch of betas, a couple alphas, and so now this is getting really close. So I'm thinking in the next month or maybe in September
Mm.
here we'll probably see either maybe 1 or 2 extra release candidates for bug fixes, um, or we'll probably hit the full release of the 2.5 version. So the 2.5, the big things is they implemented a lot of the Kira changes that they put in for the walls and whatnot. So it's a nice big upgrade in that respect. So if you're looking to use Prusa, they've done a lot of work. They've optimized it for both the new Apple M1 and then or M2 or whatever the latest one is, and they've tweaked some AMD drivers for the processing so that now it will use your video card for acceleration. So there is a number of enhancements and whatnot. So definitely worth a look if you want to. If you're one of the people that just will not touch betas or release candidates, that is absolutely fine because, I understand I sometimes like a really stable system. So, wait until the full release and I think you'll be very, very happy. So, do you think you got your audio fixed? Maybe? Well, he's not talking, so maybe he can't hear me now. I don't know if he can hear me. Hopefully everyone else can hear me. All right. Other than that, it's been a hot summer. And I want to know what you guys are doing. I'm going to just look at the comments here. Yeah, it wouldn't. You're right, Stig. It wouldn't be 3D printing church without some glitches.
I like glitches,
Yeah.
Just switching microphones.
And seeing if that works better.
Yeah.
That's weird. The other one normally, it was sounding great to me, so I don't know.
Well, it worked fine when I was doing Twitch the other day.
That's weird.
So, yeah, I Twitch stream now. That's the thing.
Yeah. So Dominic was saying when into beta, yeah, it's actually out of beta into release candidate, Dominic. So
yeah,
so that's great.
It's coming. It's almost here. Is that better for sound? Kinda.
Does David sound better, guys? And
hello? Can you guys hear me now? I think you should be able to. Hello? Hello? Testing. I'm sure you guys can hear me.
you know what, Dominic, the actual profiles in Prusa are really good right on their own. So if you don't want to transfer yours and you just want to try it, you may want to try some of the default profiles because they are really good. So worth giving it a shot, and then you can tweak from there.
So, did we touch on, because I lost my headset for a second there, but did we touch on the Dominic's question about the filament from the start?
No, we didn't. So earlier on in the chat, like right before we started the show, Dominic had a question. Let me just scroll back here. So his question is, can drying filament cause it to become more brittle while on the spool? That's a really good question.
It has two really weird answers, too.
It shouldn't, but it really, it's one of those funny things that it depends on how humid it is where you are and this and that. So you could dry the exterior, and if it doesn't dry in the center, it might make a change. What do you think, David?
So brittle filaments usually because it's absorbed a lot of moisture, and drying that should in theory fix it. However, if you do it too long, you could dry it too much and then have a little bit of issue on the other side. But yeah, like I've noticed a lot with the stuff that we got from Vancouver. Not going to say the name. I'll just say from Vancouver. If it picks up moisture in any sense, and it comes actually with moisture, and you have to dry it before you try to use it, it will give you a little bit of headaches. But like I've had other stuff too where especially like the Petchy family of filaments, if you dry them too much then you can run into issues. But generally speaking, a dry filament is a good filament and it won't be that brittle. But again, it all depends on it depends on the material, because some materials you don't want to just throw in a dehydrator. You actually need a little bit more control. I know I'll probably say this and we'll have 2 or 3 people go, yeah, I do that, but lots of guys just turn their hotbed on and then put a bag over their printer and the filament in there sitting on the hotbed to dry it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's lots of
Yeah,
methods.
and it depends on where you live too, right?
Yeah.
Like, we are in a fairly dry climate where we are. We're in a semi-desert environment, and so even in the winter, there's like almost no moisture. We almost need to add moisture.
Yeah, like our it's very rare that we hit above like even like 30% humidity. It's
Yeah. Now I've had a spool kind of near the end of its roll. I think I've got like, I don't know, maybe 50 meters left on it, and I've got it going down. I just left it in my printer and it's broken. Like I can see it hasn't let go yet, but you can tell
it,
that
it's
it's definitely
it's
got picked up some moisture and whatnot.
yeah,
But I normally just peel it back a bit, roll it off the roll a bit, clip it, and then it's fine.
it's
So
fake on the roll at that point. Yeah.
yeah, but it's just one of those things.
So here's
So
a question for y'all. If you are of the filament drying uh, people,
persuasion.
yeah, persuasion. That's the word I wanted. Yes. How are you guys doing it? There's like I said, there's a couple options, but like, do you have like a Fill-A-Dry, which is basically a food dehydrator that, the original ones were food dehydrators. The newer ones kind of look more like the eSun spool holder dryer thing.
Right.
Are you guys using? Some guys use toaster ovens.
I that would be a little too aggressive for my taste, the toaster oven.
So the thing is like don't put your filament in the oven. Like I have
Don't put
seen
it on
that.
broil.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, no, you need. So the thing with drying filament is you need constant temperature, and your oven's thermostat is pretty harsh because it might say 450. Don't put your filament in the oven at 450, by the way. It might say 450 degrees, but like it's a hard on and off thing, and it
Yeah.
doesn't
No.
actually maintain it.
What if you have a convection?
Do you have? Can I bring? Do you have a convection? Can I bring it over to your house? That
Convection would actually probably would be better because you do have the constant airflow,
yeah.
so that would even the heat out. But I mean, you're probably running it as low as the oven could go at that point,
Well, and that's the
right?
problem with it too. Like filament
And
drying
that's probably still
temperatures
too
are,
hot.
yeah. And generally speaking, when you're drying a filament, you're going to be right around whatever the bed adhesion temperature of that filament was. So like if you're drying a PLA, somewhere around 50 to 60 will get you done in about an hour,
Yeah.
right? Well, if you're doing a PET though, 70 to 80.
Or 50 for longer,
Yep.
right? You need so one of the things is if you have the fuller your spool is, the longer it can take for the heat to penetrate the center parts of the winding,
Mhm.
right? So you'll get maybe the exterior of the winding dried out, and normally depending on how tight the winding is, that'll help protect against
Mhm.
some moisture to
Yeah.
a certain degree. But
Yeah.
there's no excuse not to have some desiccant in your bags, and when you're not using
Pop the
your
filament back in.
filament, put it in a bag with some desiccant. Recharging your desiccant, you can use your microwave, put it in there for like a little bit, and you can recharge your desiccant. It'll basically, you heat the desiccant, and it will expel all the water, and you can tell because a lot of the desiccant changes color.
Mhm.
We did a couple experiments, and we've never done it in a video, have we?
We should make it a YouTube short.
Yeah, we
That's
should,
as
or
long as the
something,
video has
right?
to be.
Yeah,
Um,
it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but that might be something to do. But you know what? Something we haven't done yet, David?
uh, use the thing. Hold on.
We haven't thanked a certain
Right.
fortunate
Right.
people.
Like we're a little, and then we'll come back around to the comments.
Yeah.
here's this thing that I'm doing now. Thank you, everybody on this list. I know we have to fix the list, and we will.
Yeah.
Uh,
So Jim, just so you know,
we know.
it we know that it's wrong, and we're updating it right away. So it will say Jim Fleming,
Yes.
not Fleming Jim.
Yes.
And I do believe he's actually changed his support. It's gone up too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have to
Well,
move him around
have to
as
move
well.
you around. But how's at the top? Thank you, everybody, for support. We appreciate you. And then we'll talk about something a little bit close to the end of the stream. But so let's go. I'm just rewinding comments here a little bit. So Stig said he's close to the coast, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like humid in the summer and in the winter it's dry. So it's kind of opposite. And I know, like, again, like, and he says he's using his space heater
Yeah.
to do it. Space heater is actually a good use for that because they're more sensitive. So if you can have a safe setup where you're not melting stuff, and like
Yeah.
he says, he's rotating things, so
Yeah.
that would be good.
You
Local
need
make,
you need a little platform that rotates.
yeah,
And then you just put the space heater there and let it go.
yeah. And then local maker says I'm drying my filament, even PLA, couple hours, and he says like it's looking good. And I would agree with that. Almost all of my filament comes out of my dry box, so
Yeah.
I proactively try to keep everything mostly sealed in either my dry box, which is it has a gasket lid around it with a bunch of desiccant in it, and then
Yeah.
I just throw my spools in there, and I have two of them, or they go back in like the. Do I have one sitting here? No. Oh yeah, they go back to something like this. So you put the bag and then the desiccant in the bottom.
Hashtag not sponsored.
How you hashtag it was the closest spool to me, not sponsored. But even if you do something like that, you don't have to get into like a whole lot of drying. Now that being said, if you're printing nylon, or very
you pretty much have to
hygroscopic, yeah,
dry it every time.
and it's probably a good idea to think about even getting like the Eason filament box or something
Yeah.
similar, just because it keeps it kind of like, obviously it can't be moisture free because there's a hole in the side for the filament to come out.
Yeah.
But it it helps keep things dry in there as you're
Yeah.
printing. Because what was it? Man, what was the stuff that we got? I think it wasn't PET G. It was PETT. Remember the stuff? It was like we got red.
I
and
didn't buy it.
blue.
You must have bought it.
No,
somewhere.
it was from it was old stuff from work that they. I forget the brand now. T-Gloss.
Oh yeah,
T-Gloss.
the tea glass stuff.
And when you're printing that, you
Yeah.
could definitely see it while it was printing.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. We just had a print. It finally fell off the printer. I'm like, what just fell? But yeah, the tea glass, while you're printing it, you could notice that it was collecting moisture because it would
Yeah.
start really good. And then by
and
the
then it
time
would go
you're
pop,
top,
pop, pop, pop.
yeah,
and
and then
stuff,
it was
yeah.
string and like, so like
Yeah.
stuff like that. And like anything in the PET kind of line has that propensity. And I know Steak prints a lot of PET G. And like I do too. I love the stuff. It's just, it's more prone to collect moisture. I've been thinking about making an air dryer with Peltier coolers.
Yeah, that's a neat idea.
You could, yeah, and then like the one side you have your air dryer, and then the bottom you have your beer or your pop, whatever it is.
I was going to ask Local Maker, but he already answered. So you read my mind, Local Maker. He says he has the eSun dryer and works good enough for a $50 investment. So
Yeah, it's
eSun's filament we've noticed is we've used the ABS and whatnot. It seems pretty good. So yeah.
We've used lots of their ABS too. Well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say lost, but the majority of the ABS we are printing right now
Yeah,
is
ABS
eSun.
Plus or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a couple rolls from our friends in Calgary.
Yeah.
Derek up there. So, like the house brand spool and it prints fine too. I would compare them. I think they're good. I haven't much problem with Petchy and Moisture. And see,
That's good.
that's really
That's
good.
good.
It's weird, but it's good. I wish you continued luck with the Petchy and the Moisture. It's one of those things. Well, I mean, when you think about it, if you can grind a pop bottle down to make like Petchy,
Well,
should
those
be okay.
videos are pretty cool where they have a little cutter and they strip the bottle and they stretch it and then they print with it. It's like, wow.
It's neat, but
That's
then
cool.
you're like, but you're only getting like maybe a benchy worth out of like a 2 liter bottle. But
Yeah, that's true.
it is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like making your own filament. That's I think, has anybody tried it? I'm just curious.
I'm not ambitious enough to try that. It looked cool, but I don't know. So Stig, are you finally settled in your new place? You said you were in and still unpacking, and you were waiting for your new internet. Are you all set up now? Hopefully.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
it's a long time coming there too. Stick, I've started using eSun PLA Plus and Petchy. Yeah, like eSun has like
They're nice. It's nice filament
they got a lot of good
so far.
color selection.
Our
if that's your
experience
thing.
so far.
Yeah.
You know how it works sometimes is, film is great for a while, and then they bring out a bad batch. But they've been very consistent with anything we've ordered. So
Yeah, hashtag not sponsored.
it's true.
Yep. We don't we print it. We like it. I think between eSun, the only other one that I would go to is that Polymaker. I very much like Polymaker filament, and it's the right price. Anything that's around $24, or I'm okay with, and
Yeah.
it's hard to know sometimes.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yes.
Yes, but I still live in a boxes. That'll be a while, I'm sure. Takes a while to get the boxes under
I
control.
think we've been here like eight years, and we just got rid of our last box. So yeah, you got some time.
Oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, the boxes, tiny boxes. So I'm sure Greg talked a little bit about. Did you get to Cura?
Yep.
On the void
Yeah,
time?
we talked about Cura.
Okay. So I did want to mention one thing, and this will make some people like happy, I'm sure. But I've quit using Prusaslicer
Wow.
since probably like July, maybe June. I really wanted to give the new version of Cura a good try,
Right.
and a couple of things I've noticed. One is the time estimate is fixed.
Oh, so now it's much more accurate.
Yes, so like it will line up closely, if not spot on, to like even like you could slice it in Prusaslicer and Cura. They'll be close, and then they're close in Octoprint too. The other thing that I've noticed, and this has more to do with the new slicing engine in it, but like it's fast. Not to open the program. Opening the program's still slow, but like to slice, it's just as fast as Prusaslicer now.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that the show note or the release notes said that they've also improved that.
Yeah.
So
And that's I think it was called. The
are you
Arcane
using the 5.1 or 5?
5.1? Well, like it was 5 back then, and then I up.
Yeah.
So like as I've gone and I've noticed these things, the one thing, and I know Prusaslicer could do this, because I understand, like I know what the process would be, but like when you are changing speed settings in Cura, as you do, it auto calculates off of a percentage. Now that's not to say Prusaslicer doesn't. So if you look at the
Prusaslicer can.
yeah, so there are some settings if you go into. Well, let me see if I can bring it up.
Yeah. Some of them are defaulted to a number, depending on which settings you can do, and then a lot of them you can do a percentage of. So if you set your speed to this, it will, and you have your percentages in, it will automatically do the calculations.
Yeah.
In Prusa, but yeah, Cura has always been a little bit better at that.
I'm just opening I'm
through the defaults.
opening
So
stuff. 1 second.
I guess I'm gonna have to start slicing in Cura and see if I'm liking it more.
And I don't feel like I'm
Maybe for
cheating.
September, I will only use Cura.
Whoa.
I think
That's
that's
a
what I'm gonna do.
that's a commitment and a half right there. You've heard it here first. Okay, let me see if I can grab this over here. So I'm going to show you Prusaslicer first because
All
it's
right.
a minute. But so when you look at, I'll put this on over here. So let's transition, and hopefully everybody can still hear me. Probably not.
Can you hear me?
I don't know. Well, they could hear you, I'm sure.
Oh, hey Scott, how you doing?
Oh, hey Scott.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have been using Prusa, but I just committed. I'm going to use Cura for the month of September only, and see how it goes.
Audio. Okay, so I think you all can hear me now still, so that's good. Anyway, in Prusaslicer, everything happens when you click the expert mode in the top. Oops. Except that doesn't happen. I closed it. Dang it. Okay, well we'll go to Cura first. Look, here's Cura. It was always planned this way. So, while I open Prusaslicer, let me show what I mean in Cura. So, if you go there, oh wow, okay, yeah, I forgot how fast Prusaslicer opens. All right, so Prusaslicer speed settings, and this is where I'm just talking about right now. You can see along the side here there are percentages.
Yeah, and not everything can be done in percentages, but you can see that there's quite a few that can.
Yeah, and then the ones that aren't, you'll notice that usually they're fairly close or above your perimeter setting. So when you look at print speeds in Prusa, you can set this first one up here to print your walls and such. And so like usually what I'll do on a print is, if it's just a normal print, like I'm, printing just a part that doesn't need really high resolution, I'll go up to 80, and then what I'll do is I'll just take 80%, and any spot that has the 80s in it, that's where that goes. So kind of like that. I might be crazy, but that's usually what I do. So this is kind of what it looks like. The support material, if you're not using support, it doesn't matter. But now the interesting thing though, so when you run the numbers, 80% is roughly 72 or something like that. But if we look in Cura, it's run a little bit different, and I'm glad that it's open in this mode. It just gives you one, it says print speed, right? And
Yeah.
so then you can type your 80 in here, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to tell all my friends that I'm printing 80 millimeters a second, right? I'm just cooking, right? Wow, look, my printer prints at 200, and the box changes yellow and going, might be a bad idea, but you could do it.
You could attempt.
Yeah, right. So put whatever number you want in here that makes you feel good, and you can tell everybody you're printing that fast. But here's the truth. So let's check all of these.
Yeah, you got to remember that if your firmware is set slower,
You
and Scott will know all about this. If your firmware is set to a lower speeds and feeds,
yeah.
it doesn't matter what your slicer says. You could say, "Oh, look, I'm printing at 6,000,"
Right.
and your firmware will. So unless you can override your firmware, or you set up your firmware
Yeah, to have
properly
a
so
higher
that
limit.
you have a higher, then you use your slicer to slow it down. So that's something we'll go over when we're doing our workshop.
Yep. And then when you look at Cura, I almost said Prusa, but this is Cura. You can see like the 150, actually that math is automatically done for you all the way down. There's not one that actually, like, if I were to change this first number, the only one that matches it is generally the infill speed. So that, like, and that's all calculation driven. So
Right.
Cura will let you change your speed globally faster, but you can see that, like, if I'm just gonna put 80 here. So at 80, like, my wall speed's actually 40, But let's see if I can do this. Put this here, and where's that? Put this here. Yes. So,
Right.
but you could see the calculations here where the
Yeah.
perimeters and stuff. Like this is going to be 80 for my wall speed,
Yeah.
but in here my wall speed is down, right? So if you the convenience factor is there inside of Cura.
Yeah.
However, be aware that there's some extra hidden options, and it's kind of like clicking expert mode. You just have to open all of
Yeah.
them in Cura, but you all know that. But that's one
Now,
of the
now
biggest.
Scott's commented that some slicers might try to alter your max speed and accelerations.
Yes, and
Now, and that's true. And if your firmware, for example, supports the G code commands, you can even have your start G code tweak stuff, and you can have when your G code is basically spit out by the slicer,
yeah,
it can put those commands in there so that it will modify the appropriate speeds and feeds in your G code. Now,
yeah,
again, your firmware needs to support that, and if you have some random firmware, it may not. So, if you use something like Marlin, for example, and you've set it up correctly, there's a lot of flexibility with G code commands to change the feeds and speeds. So,
So I'm just trying to, yeah. So like here, like you can see that in the base settings for the CR10S, as an example, and I usually remove these, but like it is setting up some acceleration and stuff beforehand. So like it's setting up different. It will set different settings, as Scott mentioned, before the print, and it'll write them to your firmware and then print. And then oftentimes what they'll do is write them back at the end, so it's almost like it never happened. You didn't know what happened there, right? So,
yeah,
um,
it resets it to factory or whatever your previous
yeah,
ones
and
were.
some of them are normal, like to
Yeah.
reset the feed rate and the flow rate.
Yep.
That's fine. Like if you guys have ever seen the numbers on like an Android 3 at the bottom that say 100, that's what these are. And that's fine. But like you might have your firmware set up for specific jerk settings and stuff.
Yeah.
And like we spend a lot of time configuring firmware that we like,
Yep.
that we know, and could think about the headache if you're testing it in Cura now and you
Yeah.
spent all this time and you're like, I've changed all my firmware and it still looks the same. What's going
Well,
on?
well, and the other things you might want to look at is like some filament
Mm-hmm.
settings
Mm-hmm.
you can put in on G code specifically for that filament
Mm-hmm.
to so you can then adjust, for example, your jerk and whatnot
Yep.
in the filament settings for the G code, so that if you specifically know that eSun
Yep.
works better with 5, 5, and 3 or something like that. I don't know, whatever the
Whatever.
numbers are.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Then you can have that always for that filament. So you can customize it to the point. And if you look through some of your filaments on, depending on the slicer, you'll see some additional G code under those filaments so that, or spots that you could put G code, I should say,
Yeah. So,
under those filament spots so that you can see what maybe the factory recommends,
yeah.
but that may not work for your printer. So you can get really geeky and very granular
Yeah.
in your tweaking of G code between filament and everything. So it works really great.
And most slicers like will give you the opportunity to have print and filament settings. Just trying to think. The only one that I know that doesn't, and they probably fixed it by now, is that Matter slicer from like
Oh yeah,
Matter 3D or whatever it
yeah.
was called.
Click on the custom G code there for the filament.
I'm
There.
having a hard time getting it. No, I'm just kidding. I'll click it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there.
So you can see that if you had different filament. Now, it also lets you pick. So if you're in your printers, right, you'll notice the drop down. And unfortunately, I don't think this one is here. Let's save it and let's see it. So if I save that and I go back here, yeah, good. Yeah, so the filament settings are, I just wanted to make sure they were separate because, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, so you can save, like if you're printing your filament and it was like PLA or
Yep.
whatever, right? You can go in there and you can actually choose like the filament presets on the front of Prusaslicer. You can do it
Yep.
in Cura too, but you have to use the. I think I closed it. Yeah, but you have to go into the extensions in
Yep.
Cura and then add it as a script. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. And
So.
you can import different depending on the manufacturer. You can import filament
Mhm.
into it. Like more and more of the manufacturers of the slicers are putting a wide variety of manufacturers filament in so that you have a good choice. So you should be able to choose, your eSuns and your bigger brands in there. But if you have something that's maybe an obscure brand or maybe a local brand, for example,
Mhm.
you may have to create that yourself and tweak it. So,
So like when you're going through here too, Prusaslicer gives you all of these filaments, and we're all familiar. Like I'll hit finish here, and let's discard these. So it'll let you pick all of these different filament brands now, and we have our user one that we just made. But mostly what that does is if I let's print 3D Jake, you can see like there's no actual custom G code per se
no,
for the filament here. What
but
it
they do
does
have the
is it,
recommended temperatures.
yeah, so it's temperatures and that kind of stuff. And then it also will change like if you pick generic ABS and you look at your cooling, it should shut it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So it's mainly for fan speeds and whatnot and temperatures and whatnot. But if you know you need jerk and whatnot, you can then customize it per filament.
yep.
Now, is everyone good to do that? Probably not, but
Maybe.
you could like it, you could do it. And
Yep.
so that's the nice thing with the slicers is they do give you lots of flexibility, whether you're setting up a printer and adding start and stop G code,
Yep.
whether you're doing a specific profile and you want specific start and stop or start G code or stop G code within profile, but not within, let's say, the hardware of the printer itself, you have the ability to
Yep.
tweak it that way.
And Dominic just made a good point. The 500s of the M are always your friends when you're flashing firmware. So even once you put new firmware on it, you should flash M502 so that it overwrites the EEPROM.
Yeah,
And
and then do a 500 to save.
yeah.
So because you want to, because too often people forget that.
Well, and like it's even like so did the video on the E3 Turbo, and that's where it gets you is because it has like an onboard EEPROM too. So if you don't
Yes.
M502, you're still running your old settings.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you should like at the end of your G code in your slicer, like if you have the settings that you liked before, you could do an M501 at the end of your print, and that will set your firmware on your printer back to your EEPROM settings
Yeah.
at least. So it's a little bit user friendly, and you can just set that in the NG code, like you saw in Pruso or Cura. Just pop it in there, and then it'll do it for you. But
Yeah, and Stig says that he tries to keep to one filament brand,
yep.
so he doesn't need to tune it. And that and that's very valid. Like if you are doing a lot of printing, you find a brand that prints well for you and whatnot,
Yep.
you're gonna stick to it.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes I'm cheap and I just want the cheapest roll that's on Amazon. I'll buy something and it's like, temperature tower time.
Yeah. And like as a caveat too, we talked about it briefly, but like when you're putting desiccant in your microwave, don't leave it unattended in case there's metal in the
Yeah.
desiccant or the bag.
Well, I like your idea of making a short. I haven't made some shorts, so I'm gonna maybe experiment and make a short
Yep.
on
They're-
revitalizing your desiccant. So
They're like a TikTok. All the kids are doing it these days. The TikTok.
yes, all the kids are doing it.
So we're coming up.
Maybe I'll get my daughter to do it.
Right? She could do the whole thing. So we're coming up to the top of the hour here, and I do got to bolt in about 5 minutes or so. But like, before we go, I wanted to quickly circle back because we talked about it before summer and then summer. Um, but we'll, if you're a member of our Patreon to start with, we're going to be offering a workshop, and what
Yep.
we'll probably use Discord as the platform to get everybody in and talking, and then we will save that session and then put it up on the Patreon.
Yeah, for anyone
Side
who can't make it or whatever.
And so what that session will entail is we'll pick a few. You guys can give us suggestions as to which printers you wanted to like use as example printers, which boards, because I know we all have different boards. Like the sky's the limit, and the with
And the board doesn't matter all that much, except when it comes to your end stops and stuff like that, really.
well, and the
hot
stepper
ends.
driver direction and all the
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
settings.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
But
actually
that's
pretty big,
that's
you know.
that'll be some of the stuff we're
Yep.
gonna
And then we'll go through and
Educate
basically go through best practices. Well, and kind of show you how we make the checklists on when you're done, and you can actually flash it to your board.
Yep.
We won't. Okay, I'm asking this in the chat right now. How many people still use older boards, Melzi's, 8-bit microcontroller sort of thing, or is everybody on like a new processor? I'm just curious.
Even the newer Crealities are easier to flash and whatnot. So I think we want to focus. I would hope we'd want to focus on the newer stuff, but we don't want to leave anyone behind
Well,
who has an older board.
It's
because it's a little
interesting
trickier.
to do like the ISCP stuff.
We
But
could definitely do a separate session or video on that.
That's
the
true.
older stuff, and just focus on the newer stuff.
And then the other, so look towards the end of September for this. The other concern we have is timing, because
We have
We
a lot
have-
of international people.
yes, so like we're trying to juggle. If we do it at, I don't know, like let's say we start at like 9 Mountain Standard, so our time. It would be what, 2 hours before this stream started when that would start, and then we'd want to go for probably about 6 hours with a break in the middle, and stretch breaks throughout.
Yeah, unless we break it up into like 2-3 hour stints or something.
Yeah. So
So we'll have to figure it out.
we'll put a poll in Discord and let people vote for times, so we can kind of figure out where to like place everything time wise. But and then whatever version of Marlin is out by that time is the one we will use.
Yeah.
And we'll probably go into using like because you can use the builds that aren't the words escape my brain. There's a nightly build. That's the word I'm looking for. Nightly build. And then there's like the supported build.
Yeah. So
so
we
we'll
can
go
talk.
through the
We'll
differences
talk
and
about
stuff.
those and decide which one you want to use. Whether you want to use one of the stable streams or if you want to use a nightly.
Yep.
So
But that'll be, look towards the end of September for that, and it will only be open to to Patreons. Will that be maple syrup and moonstone time? Yes.
yes,
No do to boot it.
no dude about it.
I don't imagine there's much difference between the Easy Board and the Cura. There's between those two, not so much. I'm thinking more like there's a big difference in configuring like a 2208 and a 2209 based on like your preferences. So like if you wanted to use like centralist homing and that kind of stuff, that's where it really gets kind of different. So
and some of the older boards were 4988s, right?
Yeah.
So the direction was
wrong.
flipped.
Well, wrong
So
is the wrong word. It's different.
It was just different,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
so you need to be aware of your hardware.
Yeah. And so
Before you start, and then that will be give you the best footing when you're building.
yeah, and like we're going to try to make it as universal friendly as possible. So bring your hardware, follow along, that kind of thing. We'll give enough instructions that if you're using a slightly different board, like if you have like 2209s or what is it, a 2225, you'll be able to follow along,
Yeah.
right? So we'll make sure that happens. I'm gonna do the thing again.
All right.
Hold on, I got it. I'm really good at this. This one. Thing again. Again, thank you to our patrons. Helge at the top there, but everybody else, you're all awesome. If you
And
wanted to,
and David's been talking about Discord, and so just to be aware that any of our patrons have full access to the Discord, and they will be the first access to our workshop.
yes.
So,
If you wanted to check out the workshop, you have to be on Patreon this time. We might have another method next time, but this time it's patreon.com/3dmakeit for all your Patreon needs. Just kidding, not all of them. Just 3D Make It. So the like I said, the workshop will probably be towards the end of September because we won't be
Yep.
as busy with our other stuff, and we actually probably would have run a workshop by then. I think almost at the schools that we work in. So,
I can't remember if it's September or October.
yeah, I forget when we planned it, but so that'll be coming up. If you have suggestions on time and stuff, we'll be watching the Discord like hawks.
Yep.
Not like a hawk. It pops up on my phone and I
We
get
get notifications.
notification. I don't have to sit there and watch it. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, so we'll be looking forward to that. Aside from those things, I think I got to bounce. So
Okay, you got to bounce, and so I think we're done for today. Thanks everyone for showing up. Stig and Local Maker and Dominic and Scott and
everybody,
Tyler and
yeah.
everyone. I'm sure I missed someone. If I did, I'm sorry.
All your wonderful faces. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for showing up. And
There's some guy named Greg in chat. Thanks for
yeah,
coming.
Right. So, so thanks everyone, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye all.